My name is Jack, and I work as a security guard. For years, I've been assigned to various posts, from malls to office buildings. But nothing prepared me for the shift I took at the old Brookside psychiatric hospital. Brookside was a sprawling, abandoned facility on the outskirts of town, surrounded by a thick forest. Once a bustling hospital, it had been closed for over a decade. Rumors about why it shut down ranged from financial troubles to strange occurrences that scared the staff away. But to me, it was just another job, one that paid well for an overnight shift. The hospital had a haunting beauty. By day, the sunlight would filter through the broken windows, casting long shadows across the peeling wallpaper and dusty floors. But by night, the atmosphere shifted entirely. The dark corridors seemed to stretch endlessly, and the silence was deafening. On my first night, I arrived at Brookside just before sunset. As I walked through the front gates, the massive iron structure creaked, setting the tone for the rest of the night. The previous guard, an older man named Tom, greeted me with a wary smile. "Good luck, Jack," he said, handing me the keys. "Don't let the stories get to you." I shrugged off his comment, thinking he was just trying to spook me. I watched as Tom hurried out, glancing over his shoulder more than once. With the keys in hand, I began my rounds. The building was enormous, with countless rooms and hallways. I methodically checked each door, making sure everything was secure. Hours passed, and the only sounds were my footsteps echoing off the walls and the occasional hoot of an owl outside. As midnight approached, I made my way to the security office, a small room filled with monitors showing various parts of the hospital. I settled into the chair, keeping an eye on the screens. For a while, everything was calm. Around 2 a.m., I started to hear strange noises. At first, it was just a faint tapping, like someone lightly drumming their fingers on a table. I dismissed it as the old building settling. But then, the tapping grew louder, turning into a steady, rhythmic knocking. I switched my focus to the monitors, trying to pinpoint the source. One screen showed a long hallway on the 3rd floor, and there, at the very end, was a shadow. It was barely visible, just a dark shape moving slowly. My heart began to race. I grabbed my flashlight and headed to the 3rd floor. The hallways were darker than usual, the air thick with an unsettling chill. As I walked, the knocking grew louder, echoing off the walls. When I reached the end of the hallway, there was nothing there. No shadow, no source of the noise. I shone my flashlight around, but everything was still. Uneasy, I made my way back to the security office. Back in the office, I tried to shake off the feeling of unease. But then, just as I was starting to calm down, I heard a whisper. It was soft, almost too quiet to hear, but unmistakably a voice. "Jack," it said, drawing out my name in a slow, eerie tone. I froze, my blood running cold. The whisper seemed to come from right behind me, but when I turned, there was no one there. The room was empty, save for the flickering monitors. Determined to find the source of the voice, I checked the cameras again. This time, the shadow was in the basement, a place I had been dreading to check. The basement was the oldest part of the hospital, filled with old equipment and rooms that hadn't been used in years. With my flashlight in hand, I headed to the basement. The air grew colder as I descended the stairs, and the smell of dampness filled my nostrils. The basement was a maze of corridors and storage rooms, each more dilapidated than the last. As I moved through the basement, the whispering grew louder, echoing off the walls. It was no longer just a voice, but a chorus of murmurs, each one calling my name. My heart pounded in my chest as I followed the sound. Finally, I reached a door at the end of the corridor. It was slightly ajar, and the whispers seemed to be coming from within. I pushed the door open, revealing a small room filled with old hospital beds and equipment covered in white sheets. In the center of the room stood a figure, barely visible in the dim light. It was shrouded in shadow, its features obscured. But the whispers grew louder, filling the room with an eerie chorus. "Jack," the voices called, each one more insistent than the last. I stepped back, my flashlight shaking in my hand. The figure didn't move, but the whispers continued, growing more frantic. I turned and ran, my footsteps echoing through the empty halls. I didn't stop until I was back in the security office, slamming the door behind me. Back in the office, I locked the door and tried to catch my breath. The monitors showed nothing unusual, just the empty hallways and rooms of the hospital. But I knew what I had seen, what I had heard. As the first light of dawn began to filter through the windows, the whispers finally ceased. I sat in the office, exhausted and shaken, until my shift ended. Tom arrived, looking at me with a knowing expression. "You saw them, didn't you?" he asked quietly. I nodded, unable to find the words to describe what had happened. Tom sighed and patted my shoulder. "Brookside has a history," he said. "They say the spirits of the patients never left. They wander the halls at night, looking for someone to hear their stories." I quit the job that day, unable to face another night at Brookside. The hospital still stands, a silent sentinel on the edge of town, but I won't go back. I've heard the whispers, seen the shadows, and I know that some places are better left undisturbed. Even now, years later, I sometimes hear the whispers in my dreams, calling my name, and I wonder if the spirits of Brookside will ever find peace. If you want to see more horror stories, please like the video, share your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel. Stay with us, thank you, and see you in the next videos.